Hey there. So, for the tens, if not hundreds, of Studio HFL fans, I'd like to say hello, welcome back. I would like to let you know that I've got some more interviews finally coming out. In 2017, I started these interviews. First 50 or so were audio only, and then, of course, thanks to COVID and Zoom, I was able to get video for most of the rest of these interviews. And then life went back to somewhat normal, and I stopped editing, and it's been bugging me for some time. So finally, the pendulum has swung the other direction, and here I am finally editing and getting these interviews out. Now, early on, I had sponsors. I wouldn't have been able to have quite the success for the podcast that I did without them. Of course, that includes, in no particular order, Eastman Music Company and S.E. Shires, Chop Saver, thank you, Dan Gosling, Austin Custom Brass, Hammond Design, Pickett, Blackburn, and Messina Covers. I think that's it. Anyways, and also to some Patreon subscribers, so thank you ever so much. Oh yeah, if during the interview you are so moved to like and subscribe, then please do. Don't worry, this is my only ask. You won't see or hear about that again. So, now without further ado, on with the interview.
Let me do an official welcome. Wayne Tanabe, welcome to my podcast. I'm glad to have you here.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm kind of honored. I see the list of guests you have. Some really important people out here, so I'm honored.
Well, thank you. I see this is why I'm talking to you, because I put you in that same category. The significance of what you've done for the trumpet world, music world is terrific.
Oh, thank you.
So you're on Central Time. Where are you hanging out these days? Or you may not want to give that away, people.
I'm just outside of Waco, Texas. My wife and I, we have our future home here. Back in March, working in New York City, we closed the facility down because of everything that was going on.
Sure.
At that time, it was a pretty bad situation with COVID-19 in New York. It was just plain scary. But we were hunkered down for 6 weeks, and finally I had this opportunity. Well, I've been down here for the last couple months.
Good. A little bit. I would think so. Yeah. Big city, anytime, right, is busy and maybe a little can be harried from time to time. But yeah, I think even more so now. You see the news that comes out of there, and it's just, wow, who would want to be there right now?
Well, it strikes home because of all the music venues, all the Broadway shows, all the Phil, the Met, all these groups, nobody is working. And it really has changed the landscape of everything going on there. I mean, it's such a big part of that city.
Yeah.
And you see it all kind of grind or all. Yeah, it kind of makes you think a little bit.
Yeah. Did it feel like a ghost town at the beginning of this?
And the one thing I will say is different. Somehow this city or that city was united in the fact that we need to do something. Everybody was wearing gloves and masks. I mean, you didn't have to beg people to do this. I mean, because when you saw pictures of hospitals with refrigeration trucks, 10 of them parked next to the hospital, you go, wow, okay. Nobody's playing around here.
Yeah.
It got very serious very quickly.
Yeah.
So people really got very serious about the entire process.
Not so much the case here in Indiana. And I'm really disappointed. It's just I take this very seriously. If I go out, I'll wear a mask. But we've spiked in the last little bit. In fact, yesterday our governor had a mask mandate for the whole state.
Wow.
So it's serious. I mean, it's serious anyways, but some people are getting just a little too comfortable, a little too lax in that. So
yeah, same thing down here. When I first came down here, we had 163 cases. And just in the last 4 weeks, it's above almost, it's hitting 4,000 right now. Things have ramped up, and so I'm going, wow, I left the city of York. It's not as bad as there, but
right.
Hurry, relax. When you don't feel the threat really, or you don't really see it, hard to really kind of take note of it or really kind of bring it to hard your head around it. New York was easy, very plain to see. This is bad.
Is Waco home for you?
It will be in the future. I mean, it was something my wife and I knew. We lived in New York City for 15 years of working at the custom shop there. We kind of understood that when it came time to do something different in life, it wasn't going to be the city of New York. Oh, people ask me, well, why Texas? I've been down here enough for different trade shows and events and things. And the one thing I've always seen is one thing my wife does some very serious woodwind repair. She does professional woodwind. And so we're very tied into music communities, universities. So strong down here at one level. So as crazy as they are about football, I mean, when you see just a local high school band putting close to 400 kids on the field to march, I mean, I'm used to stuff like this and looking like small college stadiums. I'm going, wow. So there's a lot of that kind of thing. The strength of music is really a hardcore part of the education system here. And I've gone, I just love how much importance they put into it.
So this is not like a return to childhood home or anything. This is where you want to go and where you want to settle after you retire, right?
Now, whatever retirement is, I'm not sure what that is all about.
Well, what though, it seems it wasn't what it meant in my dad's day, or when people would put 30 or 40 years in at a factory and retire, and that was it, right? Retirement now is going on to a second or third career, doing something fresh and new.
Yeah, I've known a few people older than me that took that route, retired, and they just went kind of nuts sitting at home and didn't have that purpose, didn't have something to get in the morning. So I can understand that. I think people need to have a purpose or kind of keeps you going.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're not at the place in Manhattan right now, the Atelier. Did I say that correctly? Atelier.
Good.
What, you don't have that commute to the shop every morning, a reason to get up and go to work there. What's filling your days right now?
Well, we are, quote, working from home, and we're working on a lot of different projects because we still have research and development instrument projects that we're working on. We work closely with our colleagues, the design section in Japan, still move forward. In different parts of the world, we have atelier in Tokyo, in Hamburg, in Vienna. Things are active in different levels still. And so we're still kind of staying active in that way. The business of operating is still going on with the company. And then we've been working quite a bit on plans of returning and how do we do a safe return? How do we put ourselves in that facility, the Atelier in New York? And the more important part of it is protecting customers and visitors who come in. So there's a lot of different levels. We try to protect ourselves, but then if we have somebody coming in, we're going to work with them.
Right.
Working with musical instruments on what we're doing directly with a customer, everybody's worried about what they call aerosol, somebody coughing.
Yes. Right.
See, hockey. Musical instruments, if you work with a brass player, all this stuff ends up as being spit inside the trumpet, and then you have to release it. So we're more in close contact with this kind of stuff, so we have to really think about what we're doing. So we have a lot of high-tech equipment and things that we're going to employ. So whenever we're working with somebody pays, going to set a certain room up, and that's the only room that customers are going to be allowed. They're only allowed. We're in part of the room. There's a lot of considerations. How do we protect the people that come and work?
Yeah.
As well as protect ourselves from...
Of course.
Selling clothing, you're never directly handling something or handling somebody's saliva. And we are. So it takes on a different kind of concern.
Yeah.
Almost not medical, right?
Yeah.
looking at some very serious things to help keep us in check, basically.
There's a music store here in town that contacted me just yesterday. They want to do an event, a trumpet event in November.
Mhm.
And I said, great. And then I start to think about, okay, these kids coming in, how can you try an instrument or a mouthpiece and then not completely have to sanitize that instrument before the next person picks it up? It's going to be a challenge to figure out how to do that. Are you going to ask that everybody that walks through the door has been tested and is clear, test negative? And I just think that changes that dynamic tremendously, because I remember walking into music stores and picking a horn up off the wall and trying it and just putting it right back up there. And nobody ever thought twice about sanitizing it, right? But maybe we should have thought about it then. But now even more, that just seems like a minefield.
Yeah. I mean, there's not so much, there's that aspect of somebody picking up something, but then for the store, there's the business part of it. There's a liability if a customer comes in and something happens to them. So there's so many levels of concern beyond just somebody getting sick, which is the important thing. But then there's these other little things you always have to kind of be careful with.
Yeah. Well, it's going to change. Can you imagine? Well, you've been to all the NAMM shows. You've been to all those, and there's no social distancing at a NAMM show, right? I mean, it's shoulder to shoulder on those events. And the same, well, Texas Bandmaster and what's the really big Texas show?
You did that at TME.
Yeah. There's no social distancing at events like that. And how many people pick up drumsticks and mouthpieces and saxophones? And wow, I just think that industry is we're all feeling it, but trying to navigate our way out of that is going to be interesting.
Ways to deal with some of that. This is going to sound strange. If you had a two-piece trumpet mouthpiece, and I've seen an acoustic demonstration, is basically talking about how does an instrument create sound. And people's impression is, well, there's this air moving through the instrument, and they take this screw or mouthpiece, take the rim off, and they put this piece of latex over the under part and screw the rim back in, give it to a trumpet player. He's playing, the sound is coming out. There's no air passing past the rim. Wait a minute. How? And I've had a funny thing back a long time ago when I had my own business. A lead trumpet player come in and he goes, you need to put a bigger lead pipe. I can't get enough air through. I finally explained to him, I said, well, that's not really how this works. You're exciting from buzzing, you're exciting the air in the third column. You're exciting that. Because no, I am pushing a lot of air. I'm pretty, this guy was a smoker. I said, you want to try something? Come outside with me, light up a cigarette. So I said, what I'm going to have you do is just take a breath and we're going to fill your trumpet up with smoke. And once we see smoke coming out of the bell, we're going to go inside. And I want you to play whatever, double C. I said, what going to happen? He goes, well, the smoke will just come out the bell. So here he is. Picks up the trumpet, he chromatically goes up, and he's just holding this double C. And I'm watching, and he's kind of looking, and then probably about 10, 15 seconds later, the smoke just starts to very slowly comes out of the bell. We mean double C. And he goes, what? That wouldn't fix this. I said, it's only because everybody's telling you have to push air from the diaphragm, air seed, all these things people are teaching how to play. It's not really how it works.
Right.
So.
Right. And a lot of that, just in the last few years, people are realizing this. And this is starting to become more, now it's convincing the music educators, I mean, getting them to change the way they teach brass players, wind players. But yeah, I thought the same thing until a couple of years ago, and somebody told me exactly the same thing. It's like,
well, the one nice thing about this in this day and age of COVID-19, you are worried about fully band and clap players pushing this out into a big room. It's really not a concern overall. I mean, not the only instrument you have a concern where they're going to spread it around the room is actually flute players, but all brass, it barely makes anything out of the bell as far as extending out. Stinking worse, fucking somebody is far worse than playing a musical brassist.
Yeah. Are you a trumpet player?
This is a funny thing. Everybody believes I am a trumpet player. I went to DePaul University. I would play percussion.
No kidding.
I was a percussionist. I have people convinced that they met me working at Shoki, or they met me here, or it's the fight. No, I'm a horrible brass player. Horrible. But for some reason, always had this liking of trumpet. Part of it, I was sitting there thinking about this the other day. My high school band. It was this great high school band. It was a school in Arlington Heights, Illinois, called Jump. Right before I went to school, I went to this concert with this high school band. It was a great band. They had Rafael Mendez playing. It was unbelievable. I couldn't see somebody had command of an instrument. It was a trumpet player.
Right.
I got into high school. We did 2 concerts with Doc Severinsen. Over to these great players.
Right.
Yeah, this band director, he just had this attraction. Great people that worked with our band. I mean, my high school experience with Arthur Fiedler, Farming Driving, Frederick Fennell, 10 marching band. We tried to emulate state, high stepping, and high school exposure. We marched the Cotton Bowl, the Rose Bowl. I mean, that was my normal high school. And then growing up in Illinois, starting a business, being close to Northwestern, so you had all these guys with Chipwoods and Arnold Jacobs, Claude Hurst. I mean, at the time, I didn't realize how great they were icons of the business. I just didn't know it at the time. And now later in life, wow, I wish he could have understood that.
Yeah. Was this a repair business that you opened, or a music store? Or?
Yeah, I went to a repair school back in the day. Funny thing is, this repair school is called Allied Repair. And my same class was a guy named Dave Monette. So I think some people recognize.
Who is that? I don't know. That's
Trumpet player.
right.
And I got out of school. I worked for a local music store. And after a couple of years, I was actually running the repair shop. And being this young guy and not being smart enough to know that maybe being this young, you shouldn't open a business. I opened up a business called the Glass Pro in Arlington Heights, Illinois. We were different. We were basically just a repair shop. And what I never liked about music stores, the repair shop was always this tiny room in the back of the store.
Right.
We're going to put this around. We're going to be a repair shop, and we'll have some stuff, but all that stuff will be in the back of the room.
Interesting.
That's all we really did was just do repairs. I've always been interested in technology and science and thinking always about why do we do things this way? Because a lot of things that repair shops do or servicing of instrument is traditional. You do it because the guy before us did the same thing. I'm always thinking there's a better way. So this kind of stuff just got me in trouble to do things, maybe cryogenic freezing of musical instruments.
I remember that phase. Yeah.
Blamed for that so badly, but I looked and researched this precision valve alignments, computer analysis of musical instruments with the University of Vienna. So I love this technology, but how can I bring something from outside into this business? Ultrasonic cleaning of musical instruments. Until I got into it, I mean, one shop doing it in the United States. I was just crazy enough to actually have a custom 100-gallon filtered unit. Oh, and people go, "What are you doing?" I mean, the old way was just taking instruments and you put in a 50-gallon drum with some kind of acid in there to eat away everything that's so there were a lot of things I was involved with. In fact, a good friend of mine, Eric Satterley, and I created this system using rare earth magnets to remove dents out of large brass instruments, called the magnetic dent removal system. We actually have 2 U.S. patents on that.
No kidding.
Yeah, so I'm getting a lot of weird, different things in my life. I always thought my life could have taken a lot of different paths. I wish I could say that everything I've done in life, I planned this out, that I knew no ideas. I think you go through life and these doors open up and you're whether to go through them or not. A long time ago, I thought I was fairly decent in repair. I did both brass and woodwind repairs when I first started a business. I was doing both, and I was this one-man shop that when I get caught up on the brass bench, I'd be so far behind on the woodwind bench, I was going back. And then at that time, the very famous clarinet maker, John in New York, said, like you to come out, we'd like to talk to you about a job. And going, how would you find this little guy who was Southern Illinois? So they offered this job, and if I would have taken it, I wouldn't be talking right now.
Right.
With something with clarinets. And running my business, I had this gentleman come in. I was been taking care of. His daughter was in 7th grade, taking care of her clarinet. I guess I won't say the name, but there's a trumpet maker in Chicago area. He said, what do you know about this company? And I'm looking at him going, your daughter plays clarinet. Wait, I don't understand. Part of a financial buying group, we were thinking about buying this company, but none of us, we know it's a great company, but we don't know the insides or what do you know what can you tell us?
Right.
He was me a part of this group and we went in looking at buying it. And the company finally said, no, we're not going to do it. But if they had bought it, I might still be in Chicago doing something with this other company. I don't know. So many weird I think about these little things that happen along the way.
How long did you have that business, Brass Bay?
I always kind of kid with my friends. I'd go, let's see, 24 years. So I paid my debt just as time. 24 years of doing this. We were basically just a repair shop. We were really not a music store.
So that format worked, right? The format of having the repair shop up front. People, because they knew what they were coming for.
Things that I didn't quite understand when I first was starting the business. My brother was the first guy I ever knew involved with computers and stuff. So he was going to Radio Shack and buying. I don't think Radio Shack's even around anymore. But he was trying to convince me, you need a website. Go, what's a website? I have no idea what that is. And so he tries to set one up, and then I start tinkering it. But at the time, I don't know the ins and outs, what you're supposed to do with. So I started writing stuff about, we do this process of cleaning instruments using ultrasonic. It was more kind of explaining the technology in the process and compared to this is the old way, the new way. It was more of an educational kind of thing. At the time, but people love reading that stuff. But I got guys in California, Oregon, Washington, send me an instrument from across the country just to be clean. I thought, wow, this is kind of crazy. Cryogenic freezing and the valve alignments and all those things. It wasn't trying to sell people. It was just explaining what the process was. And that's how, and somebody told me years after, that's really how you set that up, because people, they convince themselves that I need to have this. And people send me an instrument like Trumpet, for example. It's the ultrasonically, cryogenically frozen, a precision valve alignment. It would have all these processes. They would just stack up at the door and going, how is this happening? I didn't work on it.
This is not what you learned at Allied, right? This was nothing that.
There's a group on the internet, Trumpet Players International Network, called the group, where people would put in questions and talk about trumpet stuff. And when I first got on there, I never used my name. I would sign it Brass RX. What I was looking for when somebody asked a question about equipment or repairs or something, I would put a comment in there And then after about a year and a half, people going, who are you? Why don't you tell me who you are? We think you're in repair, so we'd like to send you stuff. And I would write, I'm going, I'm just trying to be helpful. I'm not trying to sell you something. And after 3 years passed by, a couple guys figured out who I was. One was the administrator of the site. He goes, you got to put your name up here. Or just begging me to figure out who you are. But this is how I approach a lot of things. Kind of being, I think to me, the great repair people, service people, whether woodwind, brass, they never really talk about themselves. The people who talk about them or get them noticed are their customers.
Yep.
Yes. They're the ones that kind of set the stage for that person. I kind of compare it to if you're a NASCAR driver, Indy driver. Everybody knows the drivers, but nobody knows the names of the guys in the pit crew. I just want to be one of the guys in the group. I'm just doing my thing, and I'm trying to make it possible where that person can just do what they want to do.
Okay.
Worry about is the little black dots on the white piece of paper, not about their fish that they're holding in them. So that's been very interesting.
So at the end of that 24 years, is that when Yamaha contacted you or you reached out to them?
Well, it started innocently enough as they were working on a new generation of trumpets called the Artist model now. He had done a lot of work with the Chicago Symphony, especially with John Hagstrom. And John would be in the shop almost every week. I would see him. And in working with John was working with Yamaha, and they were trying to figure out a direction to build prototypes and things. So it became apparent that when Bob Malone would come to Chicago, they needed a place to either exchange heat pipes or bells or put different components on or try different things. And so I got a call one day, said, hey, possible that we could use the shop? I said, yeah, this would be great. I told me what you guys are doing. That eventually led to an offer. Hey, ever consider working? Honestly, my first reply was, man, I'm good with.
Obviously, 24 years. I mean, you'd built a really successful business, right? I mean, why would you want to leave?
I think I did all right. And then came a point, I always kind of use that Wizard of Oz kind of thing. There's a guy behind the curtain. Hawk was the guy behind the curtain. What does he know or she know that I don't know? I up my game. Can I kind of learn more? So that kind of piqued my interest, but I turned him down the first times. Thanks. No, thank you.
So did you sell the brass bow? Does somebody else still run it, or is that gone?
It is gone. I let it go for a little while. What was kind of going on in the area at the time that I was thinking about doing, that's when the real estate market, the real estate market crashed. So
Right, 2008.
So it was at that time, it's like, now what? So I ended up selling some equipment off. I was in the area. Carl Hammond bought some of the buffing equipment for different guys. But I ended up keeping the tools I wanted, sold the building that I had. I was lucky enough, there was a building that I owned, and we were right across the street from a city park. The luckiest thing that happened, 3 doors down, there was a business that had been there for 40 years. The guy finally decided to sell his little piece of property. He across the street to a park, and custom developers were building these $300,000, $400,000 townhomes. All of a sudden, people were calling me, hey, you want to sell your property? Lucky situation, but it was really tough to sell a business or do anything. And the tough part about that is when you're the person kind of running the business or the business is known by a certain individual, that person is the business in a way. You have that person, you don't quite have that, say, draw or attention to it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've got your own shop, and I'm thinking you see every brand and probably beginner, intermediate, pro models of everything come through. In that time, are you recognizing, hey, this is a quality instrument, or you see trends in, are there common things that you have to repair on every brand? Or, I mean, is that even a legit question?
It is a legit question. And my thing right now, or in this answering this question, I have no desire to throw any other company. I love the competition. Our competition are great instruments, so I have no.
You don't have to name names. I was just curious if you did encounter that, of course.
And nowadays, I'm always scared that when I do a cleaning now, when I do any kind of presentation, people in the audience are going to go, "Oh, you're going to feed me the company Kool-Aid here." It's the last thing I want to do. A lot of times somebody will ask me a question about a different brand. And then I usually make this comment. I said, look, when I first started in this business, I actually worked quite a bit with brand B in helping them figure out a lot of different little things here and there. You should know more about that company and where all the bodies are buried than I do with working right now. But I've been very lucky. Being an independent kind of guy, you get different manufacturers. There's a company called Greenhoe Trombones. I built proprietary Gary Greenhoe.
Okay.
Being in the shop, I built all those things. It's very close to Ed Thayer, so Thayer valves. Working in Chicago, there were so many tubas that I worked on. I was the character. Chicago Symphony owns this famous tuba, the York tuba. It's Stradivarius of all tubas on the planet. So for about 35 years, I was kind of its caretaker. Being exposed, I was talking earlier that Jay Friedman, the Arnold Jacobs, all these icons of the business. And at the time, I didn't really know, but I was surrounded by this. So I was lucky enough. Maybe I knew enough to up my game that I needed to be where at some level.
Yeah. And there's a level of trust, right? I mean, that people know that, hey, if I'm going to take my horn to Wayne, it's going to come back to me in the best possible shape.
I would hope so. I would hope that from other people talking about the work or anything that they've had, I'm always kind of humored, when I first got into the business and after I started to build a reputation, I was very humored by when somebody years later would sell a trumpet I worked on. All of a sudden, I became a feature. Well, Wayne Tanabe did X. Feature or benefit, or, it was like, wow, this is weird to see it. I don't know.
It's like almost they should have some papers that accompany, right? That here's the provenance, here's the history, the pedigree. Yeah, right. Well, I mean, I can appreciate that. It's I brought some horns to you in New York, and my first experience with that, and I owned two of the first generation Zeno artists, Chicago B flat and C matching set, and I brought them both to you. And I remember you said, "Okay, play something for me." And now, what do you want different? And I'd tell you, you'd disappear behind the door. You come out a couple of minutes later. Now, what do you think? And, my first thought was, this is just, it's just a mental thing. You're making me think that something's different. But something was different and something was better. And I'm like, okay, this is a real deal. So, and I also appreciated that you said, don't worry, anything I do, I can undo.
Oh. That became like one of the most important things that, there's no way you want to do something to somebody's personal instrument and also take them to a place where all of a sudden her instrument anymore.
Yeah.
How do I tell you this story without telling somebody who your boss? Well, there was an audition in the Boston Symphony in the trumpet section. And what a lot of smart players do is they'll go in early and take coaching lessons from the principal trumpet,
Sure.
Figure out things. So at the time, this is many years ago, this guy called me up and goes, I need to come to you. I need to drive down from Boston. I just had a lesson with so-and-so. And when I came back in the room, we took a break. he had my trumpet apart and he was scraping, he was doing something and he played, he says, there, it's perfect. He handed me back the trumpet. He goes, play. And I immediately knew I didn't recognize his trumpet. It felt so weird. I couldn't play it, but I couldn't say anything to him. And so I don't want to take somebody in that kind of a situation.
Yeah.
The weird thing about that particular situation, the next day I get a second call. Another guy had the same thing happen.
Uh-oh.
He was touching lesson. I hope I can take your instrument back. I'm not doing anything magical. What I'm doing is kind of watching, listening how a player plays, and then working with the physics, because everybody brings something different, the way they vibrate the air column in the instrument. And I can either hear something different, either the timbre or the initial response. So these are the kind of the key things I'm listening. I hear the timbre change, or I hear a response of certain notes going, wait a minute, hard to do something. So that's why I always have players do a lot of playing. You're always surprised much. And, I get other players going, you just worked on Steve's trumpet. I had the same one. I want to send it to you. Can you do this thing? Out the player, he fresh. All is very individual. Because everybody, like I said, brings something different. They play different. They get their error. Or, for them physically, things need to look in a certain way. Or that's the thing I'm trying to figure out. It's strange with the tangibles. You can't see it. You can't really kind of describe. There are some adjustments. It looks like, I'll go in and I'll tap some edge or something, and somebody will look and goes, seriously, that gets
Right.
I don't know. Let's hear it. Here. Right. You were drawing. I can't believe it. I watched it. This is different, right? Oh, me.
You took my third valve out on one of my horns and you replaced that little, the guide. You put a different material, made of a different material, put it back in there, and just on one valve. And it was like, it's not the same horn. And it worked. And, okay, so you think, how in the world do you figure that out? How do you get to that point? And how many iterations in configurations do you have to get to know that this is going to solve this problem, or this is going to improve this or that?
I always jokingly say, well, if you make enough mistakes unless you start figuring things out.
Right.
I'm always kind of humored by, there's a famous question asked of Thomas Edison. We went through 10,000 different variations to figure out what the filament was. The guy has this guy ask him after they finally get this all figured out. Guy asks him, how does it feel to fail 10,000 times? He turns around and goes, no, I didn't fail 10,000 times. I figured 10,000 times how not to do it. But this guy's career, and then all those failures led to other patterns, other ideas, and other creations. Yamaha is mind-boggling. A lot of this stuff is part of it is we in New York, at the utility in New York, were different than any other Yamaha repair shop. We're the only Yamaha repair shop where we work on everything. You can come in with an old Colicchio, Bach, my Pali, Timoji Hirokata. Every woodwind, I see every principal player from a lot of the major orchestras, and they're playing whatever brand that they're playing. They're forced to work with professional. We get to see other instruments, and in that, you see variations of the same thing. You would think a valve spring is a valve spring. Well, the shape is a little different. They're using a different material. So you start to kind of learn the variations, or, why do they do it that way? That kind of thing. You pick up these ideas. You're changing the spring, plating the spring with a certain material, plating the valve, heat treating the valve. One simple little part that's not even part of the air column.
Right.
It has to do with the instrument vibrates. So we're changing the way certain parts vibrate or don't vibrate on the instrument to benefit the player that's playing that instrument.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody looks like is people, oh, you're the voodoo guy with,
Well, and it does. It feels like that. It's the magic. It is. You're a magician, and how you do that. And of course, you've got to have good ears too. I mean, repair is one thing, but to be able to listen to that person in front of you and discern. I mean, you can hear, right? You've got trained ears. You can hear issues.
Yeah, it's very interesting you say this, Mal. I can do this with brass instruments, but my colleague, who's the unbelievable woodwind technician, every now and then he's working with a sax player, clarinet player, and he goes, can you come in here and just listen to this? And I want to see if you can pick up the difference between this part or that part. It takes me the longest time to figure out what I need to listen for. With brass, I can listen to like 2 or 3 notes, and I actually have a pretty decent idea, what's happening on the instrument. With woodwind, I don't listen to it all the time, so I don't know what to listen for. And it sounds strange if you think, well, sound is just, no, there's deep, there's response, there's color, there's clarity, there's harmonic structure. Is there low harmonics, middle harmonics, high harmonics? When somebody says, oh, that's a warm sound, what does that mean? There's chord sounds. And part of it is also talking with the player. I try to figure out how to have a common language with them. So when they say something to me, a lot of times it's going, what do you mean by that? Yeah. Sure, I understand what they're saying. The hardest part for working with any musicians, you as a player, when somebody's doing this kind of, you're actually not the best judge of your own sound.
Right.
It's actually coming out of the bell.
Yeah.
Right. I've had so many times where a player comes in with his good friend and we're doing things, and his friend goes, and he's going, what are you talking about? I like the other thing better. And his friend's going, no, this is so good. Are you messing with me? You're messing with, no, I'm not. And so it's a funny thing. And then with her, I'm going, so what do you think? Is it more important what you think or what the audience thinks?
Yeah.
One, you're going to give you guys audience. To the audience. So the tough thing when you're playing and everything's vibrating here, your ear now picks up the sound differently. Okay. Color or brightness, not quite the same as what the audience hears on the other side. But I've had a fun time doing a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's obvious that you enjoy what you do. I mean, it comes out in the way you're talking about this, it's like, well, that's the person I want working on it. Somebody who's not just like, yeah, give me your horn. I'll do what I can. Right. It's like, so my wife was in string repair for 10 years and a lot of bow rehairs, a lot of, cutting the plug for the bow rehair, a lot of cutting bridges, and even more serious in-depth repairs. But she would tell me, you wouldn't believe what I opened a case today. It was a student violin, opened a case, and it's like, they must have jumped on it 20 times. It's like, how do you even, the best way to repair it is just throw it in the trash. So, I'm thinking, you've probably seen some instruments come through that you're like, no, this is too far gone. Or am I wrong? Have you been able to resurrect things from the dead?
I think one of my favorite stories, having a business, I had this family. The family had twin boys. They both wanted to play trumpet. So the family decided, well, we're not going to buy them both a trumpet. Well, they'll share. And so when you put two brothers sharing anything, what happens? One wants to practice, the other one wants to practice, so there's a tug of war. In the tug of war, they rip the lead pipe off the cornet. So them wanting not to get in trouble, I don't even know. If I was 8 or 9 years old, I don't think I would have the wherewithal to go in the garage and try to find tools like a propane torch. They decide they're going to solder a lead pipe through. But they were smart enough to take the valves out of the instrument somehow. But in doing that and burning up the trumpet, the valves roll off the bench and onto the concrete floor. And they dent the valves, they won't go in. So in their wisdom, well, it's too big on this side, they grind the valve. And it just keeps on going farther and farther downhill. And listen to the story. I mean, tears laughing. Valves soldering it all back together. But it was one of my like favorite stories about these two twins destroying this trumpet and not wanting to get in trouble with their parents. They already just wrecked their clarinet. You know?
Oh my gosh. That's a great story. Oh my gosh. So obviously, yeah, that was too far gone.
There are a lot of great stories. You know, I've got a lot of good players who love to pick up old classic instruments, you know, the old or Mount Vernon Vox or whatever. So I've had a chance to repair a lot of these things.
Now, I just recently interviewed Ricky Riccardi. I don't know if you know him. He runs the Louis Armstrong House there in New York.
Yeah.
But he's telling me, look, if you ever want to come, he's in Jersey, but he says, if you ever want to come, anybody can do this. He says, just bring some gloves, bring your own mouthpiece, and you can play Louis Armstrong's trumpet. I'm thinking, how cool would that be, right? So I'm curious, you know, did you know about this? Have you done that?
We've been there. My wife and I went there. There's a very interesting history in New York with a lot of different famous players and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's very cool. I actually would be scared to like eat a chocolate. Would love to, but at the same time, go, nah, let's keep everything good.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's something about that very tangible about being able to put your hands on something that Louis Armstrong held or Miles Davis, you know, or anybody. I had the opportunity in Hamburg to go to the Brahms Museum. And there's his piano. And I asked the docent, I said, can we touch? And she said, yeah. And, you know, now I didn't play Chariots of Fire or Chopsticks on it, you know, but but able to put your hands on the very piano that Brahms composed from. And I think there's something very cool about that, you know, transference of history. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity to pick up that Louis Armstrong trumpet sometime in the future. It'll be a blast.
You remind me of, there's a trip my wife and I took to Vienna, and we actually, at the time we had a Yamaha 288 there. So we go and visit and we're talking, you know, some of the people there and said, what is there here to see? And one of the people there says, you should go to our city cemetery. And I'm thinking, cemetery? Yes, I go there to apologize. And I'm going, what are you talking about? He goes, nobody's buried there. Mozart, Beethoven. So we go there, and when you see the stones, all these headstones in the face, you're actually humbled. You can't believe you're actually looking at them, and they're all in this one place. And it's here.
Yeah.
It was very humbling to see this. So we have pictures of all the different headstones and things. All these nice, you know, what we just like that in those.
So I mean, you know, cemetery already has you know, evokes some reverence when you're there, but I can see that even more so. Standing. Yeah, well, that's going to have to be on my list of something to do. It's like Normandy, you know, places I want to visit and
humbling. Just. I think this previous headstone was Scriabin's. It was this cube turned up on its one corner, and I don't even know how they got this giant stone to just sit up there like that and go, that's sweet. But it's kind of like the music he had done. So.
Exactly. So, well, do you get to play at all? I mean, you said you were a percussionist. Is performance part of your daily life anymore?
You know, back in the day, there's a moment in time where I used to work so hard just to be mediocre. And I had good friends who never practiced. They were amazing players. I kind of realized at that time, going, maybe performance isn't quite strong. You got to just, you know, do something else like, you know, sweep rooms or, you know, clean dishes or something.
Yeah, yeah.
I've not realized early on, like,
I had a student last semester. He had gone through a performance degree and decided partway through the year, I think I'm going to do repair. And he got into Red Wing?
Yeah. Very good still.
In Minnesota, I think, right?
Red Wing, Minnesota.
And quizzing him about it. And I mean, he was just getting really excited about this. And, you can't be a great performer with an instrument that doesn't work. So you've got to have somebody there who knows how to take care of the instrument. And so that's like, well, yeah, that's what a valuable profession. People, you're needed. You are necessary to our success, right? It's, and we're necessary to your success too, right? We got to break the stuff for you to fix it, or not break it, but find ways to shape it. That's really, I think, what you do is you shape the instrument to the person, right?
I've always asked them, I always ask this question, just never like, what's wrong with your instrument? I always have them play and say, yeah, 2 or 3 things that you wish would be better. I try to always kind of put this in a positive light. And also at the same time, I don't try to ask them a pointed question. Do you like the way they respond? Actually kind of lead them somewhere. I feel like I would be suggesting something to them.
Right.
They're always tell me what they're experiencing instead of ideas into their heads. So it's difficult to kind of ask those questions or get players to kind of give this up or just actually say it. So, it's tough in that way because that's what I'm trying to do is get, what they honestly think.
Right.
We have players going, well, what do you think of my sound? Do you think this is okay? Do you think at the end of the day, you're the one that goes home with the instrument. You're the one that stays in front of people. What do you think?
Right.
It doesn't matter what I think. I won't be there with you. If I was, I'll just criticize you all up. Happy.
Yeah.
Tell me what you think.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned Hagstrom earlier. I know Carl Hammond has had John into his shop. It's like, okay, here's somebody who's always in search of, whatever minor little tweak to his instrument or the mouthpiece to get that next thing. But I think those are the people too that probably help you in your development, new instruments, right?
Jan is a good guy because he's not looking for those things as a reason why he can't do something. Looking at those things going, I could probably make this better if so he's not looking this as a man fix something that I said at one clinic that I did, I do these repair clinics for technicians, and somebody asked me a question about working with professionals. Oh, that must be difficult. How do you're just talking about, the people's ability to play. And sometimes people are looking for those things because they can't do something.
Mm-hmm.
They asked me, what do you do with that? I said, in my 30 plus years doing this, I have never been able to instill talent. We've got a little rise in the crowd. I said, you have to listen to the player, figure out what do they need. Eventually you will find that out, but there's an art in kind of dragging this out of people. For sometimes you can identify what it is, but why or stopping them.
I'm kind of that person. It's like, I know when it's right, but I don't know how to describe even right now, right? I can't find the right words to describe what is exactly I'm looking for. Is it the highs? Is it the lows? Is it the response? Is it, I don't know. And that's why I rely on people like you to get me to that point.
Working in a situation like that and going, why don't we try something? You like it or not like it? Let's figure out what you like. It's like trying a pair of glasses, number 1 or number 2, which one's better? So we'll do this, then I'll undo it. And we'll keep on going back and forth to give you the chance to kind of compare it to. A lot of players don't know this kind of thing is possible. So you would never know to ask something like this. You wouldn't just accept the instrument. Well, this is just the way it is. There's a lot of things both Bob and I can do to instruments to really coach it to where the player wants it. If the player going to the instrument, we're trying to bring the instrument to the player.
Here I am, a trumpet player, thinking, You only work on trumpets, but you do this for all the instruments, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you do this with a horn player that walks in, or a tuba player, or, well, Yamaha makes euphoniums. I mean, you do it for all of that.
I work on all those things, developing different components on euphoniums. I'm working on two French horn model projects. I think one of the interesting things is, to talk about the company for a brief second. Even when we have something very successful, the project continues to move forward like we're still not finished with. It's tweaking and working. It's always moving forward. It's not like, okay, done, next. No, we still we discovered different instruments going, you should try this back over here. And it's amazing, the things you learn from different instrument groups or even different players.
Right.
Because every player has different demands or needs to help them as a player play. Mm-hmm. I've been truly blessed or honored to be standing on stages of every major orchestra, work with some of these players. I always tell this embarrassing story. I like to do these things where, do you know what clocking a mouthpiece, putting a mouthpiece in a certain position?
You're the one that taught me this.
Imagine going in and there's some important principal player and going, can you turn your mouthpiece a quarter? I'm embarrassed to ask somebody that question. And they looked at me going, why? You just humor it?
Mm-hmm.
You're not. We was like, oh, that's better. And now look at you go, that is better, right? That's really important person in the room.
Right. How'd you figure that out?
I think Bob actually has a better story on this. A lot of this for me was, we're working with the player, we're trying different things and come out and going, this really sounds good. And then we make a small adjustment, give it back to the player, also going, nothing I did there should have made this change. Mm-hmm. And for the longest time, I never figured that out. Then one day it's like, your mouthpiece, like a different wine. Well, and it's like, oh, that's different. So, kind of by accident, or you eventually notice things you should have picked up on, I guess.
Or is this because of an imperfection in the mouthpiece, or maybe a sweet spot? Is that a good way to describe that?
I think there is a sweet spot. Mouthpieces today, if we're talking 30 years ago, the way machining and things were done, there was a lot of imperfection in the production and making of mouthpieces. Now, for ways, things come off those machines perfect, almost close to perfect as possible. But after that process, that mouthpiece is polished. That changes small dimensions. Then it's plated the way it's put into the tank. There's a piece of silver called an anode. The side of the mouthpiece closest facing that anode gets a light more plating than the other side, but nothing. So those little differences. Then you have the receiver. What if that's not cut perfectly in the center? What if the way it's mounted? There's all these variables that in the mouthpiece. So that's why the mouthpiece is the most important part. But then everything that it's connected into.
Right.
That's why there's difference in turning it. With vibrating air column, how that sound is directed into the lead pipe. It'd be a subtle difference, but it could be the difference between great response or just kind of thuddy response. Color. So, one of the first things I always do with the player is maximize that or get the best out of that, because I want to base any kind of judgment or cheat based on use and flame the best you can.
Yeah, that was another thing where I remember leaving. I came back home and I did that on several, on different instruments too, realizing, it might be, and like you're saying, because the one receiver on one trumpet might be that much different. And I've become very consistent with where I put my mouthpiece, I want to expect the same results. So why wouldn't I?
A lot of those things we kind of learned early on, and not to throw the competitor under the bus. A Bach mouthpiece back in the day, when you took 1.5 to 3 Cs and you looked at the, into the back bore, you would always see one side thicker on one side than the other. And we used to say, anybody came in going, every one of those is an original, even if they were the same model.
Right.
One time I had a collection of 7Cs from Mount Vernon to Elkhart to, there were other changes, and you visually were drastically. Just those examples, seeing that kind of stuff, you kind of figured, well, what else do we do to kind of get more out of these things? Sometimes that imperfection is what made that mouthpiece play great for somebody. You know, it looking perfect doesn't make it play perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then there's, you've got to make sure that you've practiced, right? Because no matter how good the mouthpiece or how good the trumpet, if you're not doing the work on the other end of it, it doesn't really matter, right?
Doesn't, and my supply of talent is all run out, so I don't have any more talent. Yeah, we're out of luck there.
So Yamaha is fortunate to, and I'm thinking in the trumpet world even, to work with some absolutely fantastic players. And signature models, Udi, Bergeron, Bobby Shoe. I mean, all these great things. Have you personally worked with any of them? Or I'm sure you have.
All those guys, I feel very blessed. All those different players.
Mm-hmm.
I'm honored in my lifetime to, when I had my shop, to work with like Clark Terry, Dizzy, to work with Dizzy, Art Farmer. I mean, when I was growing up, it almost seemed like these kind of iconic people, this is kind of a normal thing, but it's not a normal thing. It's not even supposed to be a normal. But at the time, I didn't really realize how great that was. But I didn't back in the day. But yeah, I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of great players, and I had this one question doing a repair clinic. Somebody asked me, he goes, God, it's got to be really tough working with all those prima donnas and da-da-da. And I said, I'll tell you what, I've had more problems with the guy who was the principal trumpet of the key than I ever had with any flute player, any of the top tier orchestras. I've never had one of those guys ever ask me, do you know who I am? I do know who you are, but that doesn't fix their problem.
Right. And it's something I've noticed, of course, doing all these interviews is everybody's so easy. You know, they're just regular people. We might put them on a pedestal for their playing, right? But they're all real people and have weird senses of humor and similar senses of humor and great. They just have better stories to tell than I do.
Yeah. I've been honored to meet a lot of great players. And back in the day in Chicago, there's this great place called the Jazz Showcase.
Mm.
And I knew there was Joel Siegel, who owned the place, and his son, Wayne Siegel. I was so honored. I'd go there in Melbourne. He'd see me standing outside and be the first set was on, and he would like signal me, come here, sit at the bar, and when we empty, just stay there. I'll put you wherever you want. Get to see all these great players. He would just have me come in and stuff. So I was in the right place at the right time. I was very lucky.
Yeah. So I'm thinking you've been out and listening to music and probably looking and thinking, I know that horn. I fixed that horn, or I designed that horn. Now that's got to be a pretty good feeling too, knowing.
There was a brief moment in time before I joined Yamaha. I was actually building trumpets under the company named Chicago Brassworks.
Mm-hmm.
I had 17 of them out there. There was a point where when you're repairing and you're doing things, going, man, if I did this, I would do this differently. And I said, well, I've been doing this long enough. Now it's time to put up or shut up. And so, yeah, I put myself out there and, built some trumpets, some stuff. But I'm truly honored to work for the company I'm with now. It's been a huge learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
I just love the development process. So many of the things is not a timeline tied to it. It's when it's right.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a good working environment and very positive in that sense. It's not a business decision. It's a musical use.
Yeah.
one thing I've truly appreciated.
Wow.
There are a lot of great people in this business. Back in the day, I can remember calling up Harry Warburg. I wanted to learn how to thread and from on down. So I've spun bells at Cliff Blackburn's place and Shire place. He's like, come on in.
Yeah.
He's just great.
Yeah. Well, and excellence drives the competition for everybody. Oh, Bob, sorry, Bob. I was looking to see. I wonder why he hadn't gone in yet. Is he here?
Yeah. And yes,
I'm
a quarter of.
so sorry. Let me find my gallery view. Hey, Bob.
Yes, I thought you saw me.
No idea. I was sitting here thinking, well, it's 3:05. Where the heck is he? So let me fix this. There we are. Now I can see Bob Malone. Hey, you were a fly on the wall for a little bit there, weren't you?
Yeah, it was a great conversation.
Well, it was great. And what a nice guy Wayne is. We can talk about him. He won't hear us.
Well, Wayne and I have been compadres now for quite a long time. So it's he's definitely the best partner I can.
That's cool.
I'm not here, so
welcome, Bob. I mean, everybody knows you. It's like everybody knows Wayne, but I haven't met you yet. So I'm pleased to meet you even like this. This is nice to meet you. Thank you. Yeah. So talking about this is good because we're actually just started talking about Yamaha in the last little bit. You guys, I think people look at you maybe as like the dream team, you're the power duo. It's like the brains behind some of the most amazing instruments to come out. And so I get, Wayne, if I'm doing the math right, 2008, 2009, you start with Yamaha?
Actually, 2005.
2005. I never was good at math. So there we go. Bob, how long have you been there?
Well, as an employee of Yamaha since 2001, but my work with Yamaha goes back to developing the 6310Z trumpet with Bobby Shue and Kenzo Kawasaki. And I think that started in 1988 or so, somewhere around that time frame.
So now one's on the East Coast, one's on the West Coast, but did you guys work like geographically close together in the beginning?
No, I mean, Wayne and I think, have very similar stories, and especially in our paths with Yamaha, because I think he and I both became Yamaha dealers, specialty brass shops at about the same time. And we had different district managers that opened us up. And I think at that point we were pretty deep into the brass community, and that made sense for Yamaha to do that.
I played first generation Chicago. Of course, you probably heard this part of the conversation. The first generation Chicago artist Zeno, B flat and C. And it was one of those things where I had been in a rehearsal and somebody says they had one and they said, try this.
Mm-hmm.
And you play it and then you're like, crap, now I got to sell my horn and buy this one. And to me, it's like, okay, that's the mark of great craftsmanship is the horn sells itself, right? And I think that's where Yamaha has really excelled is just, well, I know Yamaha is a world brand and beyond just musical instruments. I mean, isn't it the same company that does our ATVs and?
Well, yeah, Yamaha is a big company, and their own motors products. The company was big enough now where they kind of split off into Yamaha Motors and then Yamaha Corporation. Mm-hmm. But Yamaha as a whole does make a whole lot of different products.
Yeah.
But the band instrument part of it really started to take off in the 70s. Yamaha is an old company. It's been around since 1839. So yeah, it's been around for a long time, and that's kind of speaking to that point. Yamaha does make a lot of products, and I think at times people could look at it as being this big sort of faceless corporation that just pumps out stuff, and then kind of pointed towards the Chicago trumpets. I think that was maybe one of the great examples that that's maybe not true. That Yamaha is a big company, but within that company and behind the curtains are a lot of boutique units with craftsmen who can do pretty wonderful things. And the Chicago is a result of that, all of those resources working together, all those great craftspeople and that sort of boutique part of the business to help create something that turned out to be pretty darn successful.
So one of the reasons I'm glad to have you both here at the same time.
I'm not hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
Nope.
Okay. All right.
And I can't hear Wayne either. Maybe it's me.
Okay. So let me double check this. Wayne, you can still hear me, yes?
Yeah, totally fine.
Okay. Bob, you didn't mute me by any chance, did you?
No.
All right.
I'm sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I can't hear you. Oh, for some reason.
Okay. I'm muting it. So this is the first time I've done a combined.
Oh, boy.
My screen.
Technology, right? Okay. So why don't I jump off and jump back on, and hopefully if it's a problem on my
Okay.
So
Okay, let's try that.
Well,
This is the good thing too, because I can edit all this out, so it's not gonna
work fine before I thought.
Yeah.
Everything. So
That's okay. That's okay. Maybe Shires or Selmer, they're in the background somewhere trying to sabotage.
are you in school? Are you at your school?
No, I'm in my office at home.
Okay. I was trying to figure out the surroundings, saw the file cabinet. I thought,
Yeah.
studio and
It's my studio at home. And have you noticed the book behind my shoulder here?
Trumpet for Dummies or something. That one?
That has been there through I don't know how many interviews, and nobody said anything about it yet. So, all right, Bob, I can see you and your dog. I don't know. Can you hear us yet?
Mute. It shows you muted. Now you're not muted. I'm here.
Can you hear us
Not
yet?
sure.
Can't hear it yet. Okay. Let me put something in the chat here so you can tell what's going on. A second thing. So is that okay? Okay. So Wayne, I really enjoyed this. I got to know you exactly what I was hoping for. To know you more. Yeah. More than just a repair guy. I mean, and percussion. I'm going to buy you a pair of drumsticks. That's going to be your Christmas present.
You remind me of one great story. There was a guest band, a director or conductor came into a band having problems with these rowdy kids in the percussion sections. And this guy goes, yeah, that's right. Can't play an instrument, just give him 2 sticks. And the percussionist just comes back with, then you take 1 stick away and put them up in front of the band director. So
Perfect.